Today's episode is brought to you by Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the show, go to patreon.com/JoshuaVelas and become a $2 backer today and get early access to the new episodes. I'll be leaving a link in the description down below, but for now, on to today's episode. You're listening to the Augmented Experience podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Joshua Velas. I'm a student, musician, and a gamer at heart. Join me as I sit down every week to talk about all the latest news in the technology, business, and video game world. I hope you guys enjoy. Alright, everybody, welcome back to the show. My name is Joshua Velas. I'm your host as usual, and obviously welcome back to the show. Today's episode 255 of the show, and before we get started, we're just going to do a little bit of house cleaning quick around here because it only makes sense that we do it, so we might as well just get on with the house cleaning. I do want to say thank you guys for coming back and listening. It does mean a lot to me. You guys constantly take time in your days to down these episodes, to Joey's episodes, to constantly keep letting me know how you feel, whether you like my stupid face or not, because at the end of the day, your opinions are greatly appreciated, and I greatly appreciate all y'all. So thank you guys so much for coming back and listening. I do also want to say thank you to the Patreon backers as well for supporting the show. You guys are also greatly appreciated as well. But outside of all that stuff, let's get on with today's episode. So I mentioned we're at episode 255 of this show. And in terms of total downloads as well, I also want to say thank you for that because of the fact that we hit over 3,700. So again, very, very much appreciated. But today's episode, we're going to be talking about something a little bit interesting because I know a while back I talked about the Steam Deck. I talked about I don't know if I talked about it, but this new little bugger coming out called the Asus ROG Ally, a new handheld PC. And obviously, if you guys aren't familiar, there are companies like Aya Neo that make, the Aya Neo, the Aya Neo Air, Aya Neo Air Plus, essentially this whole market for portable PCs or portable gaming handhelds has seen a resurgence ever since the Nintendo Switch came on the scene back in 2017, where, the proof of concept was the form factor works, it's popular, people want it, and people are willing to pay for it. And so we look at how all this is turning out, and to be honest, it's very interesting to say the least. If I'm being genuinely honest with you guys, it's fascinating that we've gotten to this point where Nintendo originally decided that, hey, being in the handheld space didn't make a lot of logical sense, or in this case, being in the handheld space made good money for them. The consoles or home consoles wasn't doing so good because let's be real, with the 3DS and the Wii U, we all know what was carrying that generation. It was clearly the 3DS, the Wii U, not doing hot. So they're like, slap it all together, make it one console, and that's it. Handheld and home console together in one, and then boom, we got the Switch. But it always raised the questions of why Xbox and specifically Sony never decided to either get into the market or get back into it. Because if you guys are familiar, Sony was in the handheld space because we remember the PSP, we remember the PS Vita that came out during the PS4 generation. And it's always been talked about how the Vita was quote unquote ahead of its time because of the fact that it was an OLED display. It was a very portable and compact device, the game catalog, which we'll talk about that here shortly. But when we look at all of this stuff, there are now rumors coming out that Sony wants to come back into the handheld market space. And to be honest with you guys, I think it's very interesting the fact that these are coming out, that Sony would want to come out with a new, prime example, they want to come out with a handheld again, which doesn't surprise me given the fact that, they've seen the proof of concept with the Switch and how well it's sold. The fact that it's clearly printing money and makes money like it's hotcakes. So why not? Now, there are some caveats if we're going to be honest here, because let's be real, Sony jumping back into this market, there are some concerns. Primarily, you're dealing with competition with the Switch. You're also dealing with competition from other competitors like Asus coming out with their portable device. You have obviously all the stuff from Aya Neo, all these retro handhelds and stuff like that, like emulation devices and things like that, where the handheld market is currently very saturated, objectively speaking. So for Sony to come out and do something where maybe a new PSP or even something similar to, using a backbone style controller, even like something that's similar to like the DualSense controllers and having a display in the middle, which are the I'd say the rumors are describing that, where it's essentially just a DualSense controller with a display slapped in the middle of it. I'm kind of concerned. And I understand why Sony is too, because if you look at some of these rumors, and a lot of what they're talking about is that Sony wants this to come out more of a remote play device, which I get why they would want to do it, because at the end of the day, Sony wants you to invest money into the PS5. Like, that's what they want. You look at the PSVR headset. Obviously, it's a very expensive device and it costs more than the PS5. So it's like, yeah, like I get it. You obviously want the PS5 to be the main seller, and trying to maintain two ecosystems, a handheld and a home console, is not necessarily the easiest. Like, Sony's already showing they're struggling with that to begin with, because, well, as we saw with the original PSVR, it just didn't have a lot of games, and as a result, it wasn't a super success. Like, was it still successful? Yes, on some levels it was, but it wasn't the super success that they were hoping, if we're being honest here. And the same thing is happening right now with the PSVR 2, where the sales are struggling and there's just not a lot of incentive to go buy one, especially given the fact that you have to have a PS5 to begin with. And you also have to spend almost $500 to $600 for this damn thing. So it's like, for Sony to re-enter the handheld market, it would be a very interesting idea, but I get why they would go with the safe route and just make a remote play device. Because, well, if you already have a PS5, then it only makes sense that you could, just have a remote play device so you could play it, anywhere in the house, or as long as you're on the as long as that thing's on Ethernet plugged in, you could just connect to it and stuff like that. But obviously, here's the kicker with that. We have smartphones. We already have things that we can already do this remote play stuff with, like your smartphones or backbone controller. Like, hey, I have because I don't have video for the show right now, but I have the backbone controller here in front of me, the PlayStation version of it, the nice white backbone controller that plugs into your iPhone, and essentially, you play remote play. You can play games, mobile games on it that support it. And I even have the Android one too, where that's how I play. My remote play primarily is with my LG V60 and using it with the Android version of the backbone controller, and it worked great. But it also, it gets back to this point of why would you invest money into a first party Sony remote play device when you already have your smartphone, and your smartphone will outperform that sucker by a factor of 10? Like, you get what I mean? Like, it makes no logical sense. Like, it makes more logical sense to just go through and make it its own proprietary device, separate from the PlayStation ecosystem. Or it's still in the ecosystem, but it's not like a direct accessory to the PS5. And I understand why Sony would be worried. Like, let's just be honest here. We saw what happened with the Vita. The Vita didn't sell well, even though, yes, performance-wise, it was far better than the 3DS, the DSs, and everything like that. But it's just the library just wasn't there. The game catalog, the support wasn't there. Well, in comparison with, say, like the DS, 3DS, and things like that, the game catalog is massive. Like, it had so much support, first party, third party. You had so many games coming out for it at a consistent basis, and a lot of games are really good. And that's just the issue that Sony seems to be struggling with. They don't seem to be able to find this healthy balance, if you will, where they're not able to maintain multiple platforms at once, because they're struggling. And we can say, oh, well, Josh, you're just being a fanboy. No, these are the objective facts here. It's what's happening in front of us. It's been happening for a while. There's a reason why, even if you look at the PS4 generation and the Vita, there's a reason why the Vita didn't get a lot of games. There's a reason why the PS4 had a lot of games. There's a reason why the PSVR, the first one, didn't do so hot, but it still did well enough that they were able to make another one. And now we're dealing with the same result, where now the PSVR 2 is struggling, and obviously the PS5 is, chilling. It's making bank right now. And we run into these issues where I would be excited if Sony made one, but there's also the concerns that they would just go down the safe route and make it a remote play device. And even then, it would not make logical sense to buy it, because of the fact that you already have your smartphone, and your smartphone will already essentially do the same thing, and you could do it for a lot less money, because that's another concern we have. Let's just be honest here. If Sony were to come out with a remote play device, how much do you think they would charge for this sucker? Let's be real here. They're charging $550, $600 for the PSVR 2. The $550 for the base model, and then if you want the Horizon bundle, it's $600. But you get what I'm saying is like if they're willing to charge an accessory device to charge it or price it at the point that it's more expensive than the actual damn thing you need to run it, what makes you think this thing is going to be any cheap? Like I would expect this sucker, realistically, if it's a remote play device, it should be $200 max. It should be nowhere near over $200. Knowing Sony, they probably charge you $350 for it. Let's just be real here. They would. They've shown this time and time again. And if you don't believe me, we have proof. It's not made up. It's not made up numbers. These are the like hardcore facts. This is what's been happening. And it just would be really crappy because we know they would price this thing terribly because they've done this before. Prime example, the DualSense Edge controller priced at $200. This thing realistically should have been at $150, $170. Let's be real here. Like, yes, you could say, oh, the removable joysticks and everything. I'm like, yeah, that's a great feature and everything. Its battery life is still dog shit. It's got less paddles than a lot of the competition. And yeah, like you're not really offering much aside from the removable joysticks. Like, let's be real here. Like, don't get me wrong. I love the DualSense Edge controller. Or I like the DualSense controller. It's probably one of my favorite PlayStation controllers because personally, I grew up with the PS2. I never found that controller comfortable at all. I'm being honest with you. When I was younger, yeah. Nowadays, But the DualSense Edge, yeah, it's a very comfortable controller. Do I think it's worth $200? Hell no. I think you should buy this thing on sale. But this is the point we're getting at, is like Sony has shown that they are not willing to price these things appropriately because they're getting greedy. The DualSense Edge controller, $200, PSVR 2, $550, $600. And look, they're even increasing the prices on the regular PS5. Like, they, not in the US obviously, but you get what I'm saying is that we're starting to see how they're being very greedy. So if they did a remote play device, I wouldn't be surprised if it's $300, $350. Same thing goes if this thing was an actual dedicated handheld. If they did it, this thing would be $150. It'd be borderline pushing the PS5 pricing. Either that or it's more expensive than a digital PS5. I would see them doing that. I don't see them making this thing cheap because it's Sony. And they can because of the market leader. So what else do you expect? They have market power. And for me, while I would be excited, I do see the concerns that, are arising. One, pricing. Two, how are they going to support this platform? And three, it's like the redundancy of it, because think about it. If it's a remote play device, you already have your smartphone. There's no point in buying this. If it's a portable device, okay, we're cooking just because we have the new AMD CPUs coming out, like the mobile ones, like the 7000 series, even the 6900 series. They have shown that they are very capable. Let's be real here, guys. We've seen how these Ryzen APUs have been performing more and more every year. And we're at the point where we're like, hey, they're very efficient. You get great performance out of it. And so it's like, I don't see what would be the issue if it was a portable device, especially because if you could just use these mobile APUs and then, just downscale the game that you're already making for the PS5 to run on this sucker, that's all you would have to do is just downscale it, But those are just my two thoughts on the matter. I understand that, some people would be excited. There's some people that would just go out and buy this thing day one. Let's be real here. Who wouldn't? But in my personal opinion, if it's a remote play device, it would be an instant no-go for me. No offense. I would not buy this, especially if the pricing is outrageous. If it was a portable handheld, maybe. I'm being honest with you. It would be a maybe. It would highly depend on one, the performance, two, the pricing, three, are it's actually going to be supported this time? Is it going to use is it going to be all digital? Is it going to have physical disc, cartridges, whatever? These are the concerns that people have and that we should be having. Now, granted, I say this, more competition in this space is great. This is what we need. Prime example, the Steam Deck. People said at $399, it's probably the best portable handheld you can buy. Now it has competition coming out from Asus. Granted, is that thing going to be more expensive? Yes. Is it going to be more powerful? Also, yes. But you get what I'm saying is competition is good for every market. That's just true. Having more competition, more options, brings prices down. And in this case, yeah, I think it'd be great, especially because, Nintendo doesn't discount their stuff. Let's be real, they really don't. That's another thing Sony also has to probably keep in the back of their mind. They probably are also aware there's a new Switch coming, and they know that thing is going to sell gangbusters, especially given the fact how much the current Switch has sold. And if they tout that the new Switch is more performance, it's going to sell instantly. Let's be real. If they just say, look, this thing is 2 times the performance of the original Switch, I'm buying day one. I don't give a shit. I'm pre-ordering, baby. That's going all in. We're going all in. I don't care. I'm not waiting for reviews. I'm buying this day one. But that's what I'm getting at. And same thing goes for Microsoft. I'm surprised Microsoft hasn't made an effort to get into it. But it makes sense. Like, hey, they have Game Pass, cloud streaming. They kind of don't see the point in doing it when they can just subsidize, Game Pass and xCloud and stuff like that to other manufacturers and stuff like that to just, include them built into their devices and, they get a kickback. So they don't really have an incentive to make a device. Granted, if they did, I think it'd be pretty cool if they did because they never done it. So who knows? But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you think I'm crazy? Do you think, Josh, I think you're overreacting. I don't think these are valid concerns to have regarding a possible Sony handheld coming out. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. And I hope you guys have yourselves a wonderful week and weekend. And this week, I'll be honest with you guys, school's been winding down. I'll be honest with you. It's been winding out a lot, especially because now we're going into final season. I just finished one of my classes, so I'm happy with my grade that I got in it. And now it's just do my other classes, get my grades in there, et cetera, et cetera. And school's finally going to end. So there's that. And a whole lot of other stuff that goes into it. But I want to thank you guys so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. I know it's probably on a little bit of the shorter side, but it's just more of these conversations that we're just having about this, this stuff that's happening, because let's be real, the industry's popping off right now and it's about to pop off even more. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate y'all. I love you guys to death. Please don't do anything dumb. And I will see you guys next week. Bye, guys.
Hey there. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day and listening to today's episode. If you're interested in supporting the show, whether it be financially, clicking the follow button, or just sharing the episode, it all works for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for your time, and I love you guys to death.